We're here at the Gold Rush and we're mining for gold because we got the great gold mine of 1e4, e5. Oh, look at this, Marshall. Look at this, Marshall. We've got a free pawn here. Queen takes e5. Come on, look at this. Look at this. That's gold, Jerry. Gold! Illingworth Chess. Improve your chess with GM Max. What's up, guys? It's GM Max here, and I'm going to be showing you how to play e4, e5. So when it comes to playing e4, e5, what's the secret sauce? What's the way to get that unfair advantage over our opponents? Well, the way to get to unfair advantage, if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, so you can get my Grandmaster Chess lessons every single day in your feed and become a better chess player every single day. Because remember, improving 1% each day, that leads to like a 35, 36 times increase. So let's use the power of compounding to our good. Anyway, this game that we're going to show you here, it's a game that was played between Dmitry Andreikin against another Russian Grandmaster, Vladislav Artemiev. Not the first time we've seen his competence in the ring. And after knight f3, instead of playing the move knight f6 we saw in the play e4, e5 video, so we're going to talk about knight c6. Now after knight c6, white has a million moves he can play. Well, actually, he has sort of four main moves to be fair. So to move bishop c4, I already covered this in a video how to beat the Italian game. Make sure to check it out in the description below, where I show you how to play knight f6 like a boss. What about the other moves at white's disposal? Well, if you go knight to c3, we go knight f6, and here white has a cornucopia of choices. If they go d4, we just take. We play move bishop b4, and well, life is good. You know, they take on c6, otherwise like knight e4 or knight d4 or d5 is kind of a pain. But we go takes, bishop d3. I mean, d5 is just absolutely fine. And I mean, there's sort of the safe way to play is to go cd5, castles, castles. Bishop g5 is play c6. And kind of queen f3 if you just want to equalize here. The simplest way to do so is just to play the move h6 and just accept the doubled pawns. Because actually, it's not really a lot that white can do to exploit them because they're not on an open file. And you've got the bishop pair, which gives you pretty good compensation. Now, I have to admit, they do have the idea of knight e2, d4, f5. That does kind of almost force a draw. It can be a little bit boring if you are in a must-win situation. In that case, I would recommend probably playing something like castles and then bishop g4 and this kind of fun gambit if you are in a must-win situation. This probably gives you the best winning chances. Or to move knight e4, but this falls a little bit outside the scope of this video. In any case, do make sure, yeah, to also smash... Did I say smash the like button? Well, you can't say it too many times. Smash that like button for make sure more people start playing e4, e5, or more of them play 1d4 because they're just so terrified of the power of e4, e5 for black. If they go bishop b5, there are a lot of good moves for black, but I think that knight d4 is probably the move that is the best for punishing white's move order. But there are also other solid options like playing bishop b4 and going like castles. Castles is also perfectly fine. You have something like d3, you can either play d6 and kind of just copy the opponent with knight e7 ideas. Or if you want to avoid this sort of knight e2, c3, d4 kind of Spanish stuff, you can take on c3 and you get the bishop pair. But they also have doubled pawns and you can sort of play knight e7, bishop d7 and you have to have a very solid structure with the dark squared center. It's certainly a very positional way to play it if that's your kind of thing. And yeah, there are moves I can play, but moves like a3 or moves like h3, like against most of these sidelines, move like d5, and just playing it like a Scotch 4 knights with cards reversed is going to give you perfectly fine play here. I can play bishop b5, but the extra move a3 doesn't really help him too much in that case, in my humble opinion. So that leaves the move the white playing again d4, and it also leaves the move bishop b5, the Spanish. And really, the Spanish is such a wide system that it kind of makes sense to sort of cover it separately. But for those, since most of your watchers are probably rated below like 1600 or 1800, I'll point out that the move f5 is a very effective weapon that scores very well below this level. And the reason is that most players below 800 are not ready for this Danish system, also sometimes called the Schliemann. And the point of it is, well, if white goes ef5, you just go e4 and you get this much improved King's Gambit, because in the King's Gambit you normally don't get that attack on e4. Those of you who know about the Vienna Gambit video, like on how to beat e4, e5, you might actually recognize kind of like the Vienna Gambit with the extra move bishop b5 for white, but still this is quite good for black here. Queen e2, you've got this move of queen e7. That allows you to keep that attack on the knight. Knight g1, knight d4 is pretty depressing, but if they take on c6, you can kind of take back either way. I mean, dc6 is trying to get back the pawn, or you can go bc6 and, well, sacrifice the pawn, but have a really strong center, and moves like queen c5 or queen e5 to kind of go after that knight and pawn and keep digging for the gold. So a better move for white instead would be to play something like either knight c3 or d3. If knight c3, like if you're playing at like an 1800 level or below, you can probably have very good results with d5. Like, objectively from a computer perspective, it's quite bad, because they can go knight e5, and it turns out technically these complications do prove to be very good for white. But it's still kind of tricky, and I think that most players below 2000 are really going to struggle here. Like, for example, after queen g5, you hit the bishop and the pawn. And white has to play some very precise moves, starting with queen e2 in order to get an advantage as white. But if you do want to play more solidly, you can play knight f6, which is a line where you often end up sacrificing the pawn on e5, but getting quite good play in return. Like, for example, knight f6, queen f6, queen e2, and black should go bishop e7, just break the pin before d4 is coming. And here there's sort of a line where, you sack the pawn, like b takes c6. But if queen e5, then you go d6, and the ending. It's sort of kind of like a martial sort of ending, where even though you're down the pawn, you've kind of got the bishop pair, you've got some active piece play, and it's not that easy for white to actually use his king time majority and turn into a pass pawn or turn into a win. So yeah, for people who are wanting to go all out for a win, probably d5 is more your move. But if you're sort of playing a line where you're happy to have, let's say, the worst side of a draw, then knight f6 is sort of objectively the better way to play it. But like I said, I think that the odds of your opponents being well prepared for this line are pretty slim. And if they do play d3, which is probably the best move, then yeah, you go knight f6. And again, if castle's like, you don't want to take on e4, it's sort of more solid to go bishop c5. And you're kind of bluffing this sack with bishop c6, knight e5. If white knows what he's doing, he does get an advantage, but I do find that these lines do tend to score pretty well for black below the 2000 level, because a player like going d6 castles and attacking that white king with the bishop and rook is pretty straightforward. But if you don't want to sack a pawn, there is the move d6, and again, one has to find moves like bishop to c4 to sort of get an advantage, which is not the most obvious move if you don't know the theory. But you can play moves like bishop e7, bishop g4. Again, black sap is relatively straightforward, even if I have to be honest and say that white is objectively quite a bit better, which is the reason why moves like a6 or knight f6 are objectively the best moves for black, but that's something that's better covered in a separate video, this Morphy and Berlin variations respectively. Anyway, let's now see the game where white played the Scotch with d4, and d4 is sort of what we might call a bit of a moody kind of opening, enjoying the Scotch, drinking the alcohol. Basically, when you play the Scotch, it's a way to tell whether you are a happy drunk, an angry drunk, a sad drunk, a crazy drunk. I don't know, I don't drink alcohol, so I don't know what the story is. I feel like asking Max, do you not drink alcohol, for religious reasons or this kind of thing? But nah, just I just don't enjoy it. Simple as that. And rather, spend my money on boosting that YouTube algorithm, which you can do for me as well by smashing that like button. It doesn't cost a cent. In any case, after ed4, if white plays bishop c4, there are a lot of good moves for black, but I kind of like the move knight to f6, and that's kind of going to go back again into the Italian game territory. E5, d5, and knight e4 is just very healthy for black. You can just play the bishops very actively, and you're not really complaining at all. So white normally goes knight takes d4, pure Scotch. Now, if you really like the system that I showed you against the Scotch 4 knights, it's worth pointing out that you can play the move knight f6 and below 1800, or let's say below 2000. Most players are probably going to go knight c3 and let you transpose with bishop b4 back into that good Scotch 4 knights line for black. But when you play knight f6, you are giving white the option of knight takes c6, and then playing the move e5, which leads some very sharp theory as such. Queen e7, queen e2, knight d5, and c4 is sort of the main line, but even moves like h4 also lines where black should also be ready for this. There's a lot of theory to learn, so it kind of would be better a subject for a separate video. Instead, the move bishop c5 that Artemiev played is a bit more of a shortcut, and it's kind of a bit easier for black to play without needing to memorize a ton of theory. Because if white goes knight b3, you can just go bishop b6, and if white goes knight c3, I find that playing knight f6 works pretty well. The one thing you have to watch out for here if you're playing as black is the move queen e2. Because if you let white get in like bishop e3, castles, and a pawn storm, this can be a little bit dangerous for black. But I think that the move castles is fine here. Because if they do play bishop e3, I find that d5 and just hitting in the center, it's very sharp, but it does give you sufficient play. And if they play bishop g5 and try to pin the knight to avoid that, then the move knight to d4 is a pretty decent choice. We just kind of trade off the knight, and after queen d2, takes. I mean, I think black is doing alright here. You know, white maybe has a very small pull, but you know, you can play rook e8, you can kick the bishop with h6, like castles h6. And in general, after something like, let's say, h4 and d6, I don't really feel like black is significantly worse. Though I do have to admit this is probably the reason why, let's say, to move 4 knife 6 is objectively a tiny bit better than bishop c5. But I think that at your level, it's probably not going to make a big difference. Because the odds of your opponent having all of these moves are not particularly high in my view. There is also the move knight c6, but it's also kind of an instructive point that we're actually not forced to take back immediately. Remember that, you know, it's worth looking to see if there's a better move before just playing the automatic pre-move. So the move queen f6 would be quite good. You know, we threaten the mate on f2. And if white blocks it with queen f3, then you can just play b takes c6. And then you sort of can wait for the right moment to take on f3. And then often after you trade off those pawns, I'd say knight c3, and you trade off the queens. Well, then in a lot of cases, you can kind of just go for like an f5 break in the middle game. Sort of open up the king side for your rook and your bishop. Also, your rook kind of gets the b8 square. If knight a4, your bishop has a little hidey hole on d4. So in general, I think that black is doing quite okay in this sort of ending. Of course, you can also keep the tension. There are a lot of ways to play the position, but in general, d6, knight 7 is what you're usually going for in some version to, well, kind of keep the structure and the pieces flexible. Anyway, the game saw bishop to e3. And normally in this position, black plays a move queen f6, and that does lead to a lot of sharp fury. With c3, knight e7, we're often going to see black play for a d5 break and try to get back in the center that way. But instead, Artemiev came up with a very intriguing shortcut, and one I hadn't really paid much attention to before. He decided to play the captures variation with bishop takes d4, so captures, 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 and now offer more trades with queen f6. And its first thought that I had was, okay, like this is just some kind of meme system. He's just playing it like to disrespect the opponent, like, oh, I can, you know, release the tension, give you like a massive lead in development and the center and still win anyway, because I'm Artemiev, the Russian chess genius. But actually, it's a pretty decent idea, in fact. I mean, if you do move that queen away, well, like, queen b4 is not the most attractive square in the world either. You know, you can play knight e7 and kick the queen a bit more. Or you can be a bit tricky and play queen b6. Well, after move e5, black decided to play queen b6 and just force... Well, it doesn't technically force a trade queen. You can play queen c3 and keep the queens on if you want to. But it does lose a bit of time, and, you know, black will get some chance to hit that pawn on e5 later. So white decides, you know, Andre decides to swap off those queens. Actually, no, he doesn't decide to swap queens. He did play queen c3 in a game. But probably should have traded the queens, because I do think that with knight c3 and bring the knight towards d5, I do think that white can fight for an advantage. Now, granted, black does have the move f6. Again, I shot the pawn a little too far ahead. Yeah, you can challenge a center. You know, if white tries to defend it, you have moves like fe5 and the very creative rook a5 to try and get at the pawn that way, for example. So I think that, yeah, black is probably doing okay in this sort of position. Even though white does like have a small edge, it's nothing too special, I think. But white played queen c3, and now after knight e7, like, white probably is still a little bit better, but he somehow, I think, lost his way a little bit. Now, the normal move for black, I think that most people would play, like your average Joe would just castle, because that's what his primary school teacher told him to do. You know, put the pawn on d5, and, you know, after ed6. Probably actually want to take with the pawn and not with the queen. It might seem very anti-positional to create your own isolated pawn that could be attacked. But remember, we're also attacking the pawn f2, and we also get quite decent counterplay against the white king down the c file. Remember, when you've got the king's castle on opposite flanks, it becomes very much an attacking race to see whose attack can come first. I think that black is definitely not much slower in this position than white here. So white's got a little edge, but nothing too special. Well, the game saw knight d5, which is kind of, yeah, a little riskier, but it actually kind of works out alright. I think that here maybe white could have considered a move like queen b3, just trying to force off the queen so then white kind of gets the rook active with the recapture. It's kind of an instructive point that we see, like, this game really is the hero game for double pawns, because we see it when these pawns trade with the A pawn of the rook's pawn that the rook develops without needing to move. So it can be a very creative way to accelerate your lead in development. That used to be just a grandmaster secret, but because I'm here showing you this stuff, well, now you know it as well. Do make sure to comment below with which grandmaster secret you're going to start implementing more in your games to help you remember it. And also to pick up some good ideas from other people sharing my secrets as well. You know, you can spill the beans, I'm not going to sue you for it, it's all good. Okay, these jokes aside, we had move queen to g3. Black grabbed the pawn with queen takes b2, so it's starting to get that first, you know, bit of gold in the kitty. So we had queen, rook b1, and okay, technically, I mean, black probably should play queen takes c2, just like grab all the gold he can. You know, it's kind of like El Dorado, like, oh no, we don't want to get killed off by the natives, let's get the ship, like, put it all in the gold, and then the ship sinks with it all. But actually, this turns out to be a safe pawn grab, and not just if you're a computer, but also if you're a human. If you want to be really crazy, probably Queen A2 is asking a little bit too much. I want to play Queen C3 instead, so that we kind of keep tabs on the bishop and the knight, so that after Queen G7, Rook F8, that they don't have time to castle because of the attack. And if Bishop A7, we get this really crazy position that, like, you know, at this point I can sort of imagine, like, some old, like, 80-year-old grandma saying, "This is not chess! This is not chess! This is madness!" And after B6, you know, I think just very unclear position, but Black's going to go Bishop B7, try to get the king castled. And I mean, it's anyone's game, you know, White's got a passed H-pawn that is pretty nasty, but the White king is stuck in the center, so it's kind of a question of will Black mate the king, or will White queen the pawn, or maybe both will happen, who knows. In any case, after Rook B1, Black played Queen D4, trying to keep an eye on this pawn here. And after Rook G7, Queen D7, Rook F8, and Bishop D3, I do think that White is better here. And the reason is that compared to the other line we saw where that pawn was taken, we saw the idea was not really so much to take that pawn on C2, but to get the queen on C3 and kind of not allow White to, well, allow White to get the king castled so easily. And after B6 again, like on Draken, you got a bit too fancy. I mean, you could have just simply castled and just been much better. You know, Queen E5 is never going to happen, even with Rook E1 kind of stuff. Bishop B7, you got Knight F3. You know, you're just going to slide things in like Rook E1, E6, just take stuff, Knight G5. You know, at some point something's going to give here for Black, right? I mean, maybe Black isn't lost, but it's not very pleasant to play without, you know, without the coordination. This pawn like cutting the Black position in half like a hot knife through butter. But yeah, Knight E4 now, it's sort of all Black. Because the problem is that the Knight F6 doesn't really do anything. Like, you still just take the Knight and you're not really getting a great follow-up as White. I mean, if you play, like, let's say Knight F6 and you play Queen F6 trying to keep that Black king, you know, stuck in the middle, well, instead turns out to Bishop G2, you know, White is also playing monkey in the middle, and, well, when you have an extra pawn, that gives you the advantage. So after Queen G5, this is where Black came up with a very nice decoy. You know, the game of Survivor would be called like the decoy boot, but actually here it's just a decoy. So we have the move H6. Great move by Artemiev. So if Queen H6, we can take the yum-yum on E5, and, you know, we're laughing once we get that center. White decides to play Queen H4. He's trying to keep that Black king stuck in the center. Now after Queen E5 and castles, let's test your defensive ability. Are you able to pull off the ninja stealth mode tricks to be able to fend off the attack? You know, making sure that while, you know, you're protecting one guy from being punched, that you also protect yourself, like, well, let's see. We were able to find a move with Black to play. Maybe this is your chance to pause the video and see if you can find it. Comment below the move that you would play in this position. And remember, comment, like, subscribe, notification bell, ding ding. So, well done if you came up with the move. Queen to F4. What a great move. Defending the pawn and offering a swap of queens. Now, I think that a move like Queen E7 or F6, if you play this, you also get some marks, because it does help prepare long castles. So, you know, sometimes in chess there's more than one good move. And what one of these teachers said, well, your answer isn't my answer, so therefore your answer is wrong. But okay, instead we had to move Queen F4. And now White best move according to computers. You're going to love this one. You're going to laugh at this. It's like G4 Zerg Rush. But okay, you're weakening the king. You're allowing Rook G8. And your king's still going to be kind of sitting pretty on F8. Clearing away for Rook E8, and, you know, it's pretty clear that Black, well, he's up a pawn and his king is safe, so White's just crying tears now. But after Knight D6, you know, White decided to sacrifice a piece to try to keep the king in the center. But after Rook E1 and Knight E7, there's no dice clay. So yeah, that's that. It's just like, you know, now for the rest of the game, Artemiev decided to drink the tears of his enemies. After Rook to E3, he found a great move of Bishop D5. So after Rook B1 and Bishop E6, those rooks are completely cut out. And I guess this was a bullet game, like maybe like it was 20 seconds each, which is the reason that they kept playing. So Queen E4, Queen C6, yeah. Queen H4, Queen D6, you know, offering a repetition to get close to flagging the opponent. Bishop B4, and remember that when the rook is under attack, you can still castle your king. It's a little ninja trick. Long castles, Rook D3, Queen C5. I mean, I think you would beat me from this position, so let's rush through it. Bishop F3, Knight C6. Rest of the matter of technique. Queen A5, offer a swap of queens, because the more you trade, the more you're going to be winning when you're up material. So Rook F8, H4, Rook E7, Rook E3, and now the mastermind move, Bishop to F5. Got a little skewer and a discovered attack. Queen C4, Bishop D3, Rook D3. Just resign already. Knight E5, Queen E4. And yeah, hopefully you didn't fall for Knight takes D3 and Queen A8 or Queen B7 mate. They'd be like, yeah, yikes. But instead, black played queen e1. Oh, what a blunder. You put your queen on pre. Like, what is this, you dirty flagger? What are you doing? No, it's all part of the plan. If queen e1, black goes knight takes f3. We have a discovered attack on the queen, and it's just an extra rook. And this is the end of your life. The game ended king h2, queen e4, bishop e4, knight d3. And finally, white side, he didn't want to have black die from, from eating all this poison food, because, there is such thing as a murder trial. So therefore, white resigned, having been completely murdered in this game. So there you are, folks. That's how to be playing e4, e5, and not just playing it, but actually winning with it as well. And if you want to keep going on your winning way, make sure to smash that like button, hit that subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment with what you loved about this video personally, and I will see you in the next video. Illingworth Chess, GM Max improves your chess.